I'm Brigantia Blackbird of the Blackbird Grimoire. Welcome to the daily forecast for Friday, August 23rd, 2024, on this day of the lovers. It is Venus's day, Freya's day, and Frigga's day. It is also the 2nd of Virgo, the 19th of Hazel, the 2nd of Bear, and the 27th of Hayanir, which is the Hayan month. In our astrology, the sun is in Virgo now, mutable earth representing industry. The moon is in third quarter Aries, cardinal fire representing assertiveness. At 7:44 a.m. Central Time, it does go void, of course, and then at 7 o'clock p.m. Central Time, it goes into Taurus, fixed earth representing endurance. So a pretty good chunk of the day. Probably don't really want to mess around with any kind of magical intentions because void moon means that, void results. So just something to bear in mind with that. Save anything that you want to do after 7:44 this morning until late this evening. Mercury is retrograding in Leo, fixed fire, representing fragile relationships. Venus is in Virgo, mutable earth, representing perfectionism. Mars is in Gemini, mutable air, representing pugnaciousness. Jupiter is in Gemini, mutable air, representing questing. Saturn is retrograding in Pisces, mutable water, which means to redefine dreams. Uranus is in Taurus, fixed earth, representing renovation. Neptune is retrograding in Pisces, mutable water, which represents spiritual awakening. Pluto is retrograding in Aquarius, fixed air, which means we need to examine intentions. So for the retrogrades, for Mercury, reevaluate communication patterns. For Saturn, reclaim your authority. For Neptune, reclaim faith, joy, magic, and imagination. For Pluto, reclaim your ability to regenerate. And for Chiron, restore the heroic spirit. Now, we are still in that waning gibbous moon phase, which means we are absorbing revelations. For the Taurus moon, some of your do's are practical tasks, realism, rejecting distractions. Some of the don'ts are trying to change someone's mind, fast reactions, improvisation. So, on this day of Venus, one of the recognized love languages is acts of service, and the Taurus moon and Venus in Virgo are most comfortable with facilitating acts of service rather than impassioned speeches or grand gestures. There's a lot of love and little everyday acts of kindnesses. So, while this may not necessarily be the most overtly romantic time, it can still be a very meaningful, very loving time. It's just taking a different form. It's not as showy. It's, that of making sure someone, doesn't leave the house, without and they don't have their sunglasses. Taking care of a little task that, they needed to do and they didn't feel like it. Then you thought, you know what, I'll just go ahead and take care of that for you. That way you don't have to worry about it. Little things that makes your person's life just a little bit easier, a little bit more caring. Those are really practical ways that you show someone that they do matter to you by, removing some of their burdens or by making life easier. Again, it's not showy. It's not, violins and rose petals and all of the other stuff. But that doesn't mean that it isn't love. Then for today's tarot, we have the Empress. Her number is 3, representing the first stage of completion. She's part of the major arcana, of course, so she's going to have a bigger energy impact on us than perhaps other cards do. She represents pregnancy, expecting childbirth, being passive in getting a job, friendliness, warmth, softness, the housewife, the nurse, the caregiver, mother, and being in harmony with nature in general. And what I took from this card, as I was just looking at it, I just kept thinking, the goddess is calling, the goddess is calling. And this may not necessarily mean like, the supreme goddess of the universe to you. It could be another goddess that might be reaching out to you. And it could also be about cultivating that spirit of the divine feminine within ourselves. Now, this won't be as pronounced in our brothers, of course, because, their energy is not on that side of the scale. But for the ladies, ours is. And embracing a little bit more of that natural flow of feminine energy, connecting that with particular goddesses or even the goddess herself. That would be something we could really do today, and reveling in our unique gifts, our gifts that, the things that we can do that men can't because they're not equipped to. It's a beautiful thing. We are their polaric balancing energy. We are their physical balancing energy. We are that counterbalance and balancing force in every sense of the term. So having some more appreciation for that, that might be one way we could make use of the energy represented in this card. Then today's Celtic triad reads three things which help one get rich: their mate saving, their family not wasting, and themselves laboring. So, if you're married to someone who's frugal or who's very wise with money management, that only benefits the marriage. It benefits the household, and it takes some economic worry out of the equation. That whether you have a lot or you have a little, what you do have is being well utilized. And then for the family as a whole, waste not, want not. That became a truism for a reason. I can't think of a single religion or philosophy that would really deny just the reality of that statement. And if there is, well, that's an indication of how detached from reality that philosophy is. So maybe their ideas are not something really to take seriously or to adopt. And then when it comes to work, honest and consistent labor will ultimately profit a person, especially over the long haul. Now, it helps if you're not working for people who are complete degenerates. They cannot be reprobates. They cannot be dishonest themselves. And you do need to be careful that you are not giving excessive devotion to someone who is taking advantage or to someone who is just using you. There does need to be mutually beneficial arrangements, and when it comes to matters of employment, and even when it comes, if you're in business yourself, who you accept as clients, who you have as customers, there needs to be some evenness. There needs to be honesty. Otherwise, the relationship just falls apart. Now, for today's magical correspondences, they are centered on divination. For this, we have the color purple. The plant is the lavender, the animal is the raven, and the crystal is the amethyst. So, if you are having trouble getting clear readings, incorporating these correspondences could help you clarify messages. You could do this in very simple ways. You could wear purple while you're laying out the cards or the runes or whatever method of divination you're using. Having that purple on you can help. Drinking lavender tea. There's a lavender Earl Grey tea that I highly recommend. And it is something that you read it, it clears up your senses, it awakens your intuition. And so when you're looking at your divination tool and what it's trying to tell you, you have a much better chance of getting a good interpretation. And then for animals, for the raven, you probably don't have a raven in your house, but maybe you have a raven figurine or a raven feather, or you could have a picture of a raven that's nearby. Any way you can draw in that energy, maybe try to meditate before you do your divination, trying to reach out to that spirit, asking for its aid. There's a lot of different ways you can work with it. And with the crystal amethyst, I mean, sometimes I've taken amethyst crystals and I've put them, right next to the cards. And all of it is just, it kind of helps hum the energy along. Remember, amethyst is a form of quartz, and all quartz amplifies energy. So it's going to amplify understanding. It's going to amplify clarity. It's going to amplify intuition. So there's a lot of different ways you can use these to where you can get a better reading for your divination. Now, for today's practice, cleanse your magical jewelry, and this would also include things like wedding rings or family jewelry. Maybe you have, an important locket from your grandmother, whatever the case may be. Cleanse their energy. You don't want anything yucky attached to it. Today's Hermetic principle is cause and effect. People sure do like to ignore the relationship between cause and effect, particularly when it contradicts their narrative or what they're wanting to impose upon you. But we don't have that luxury. Cause and effect is a very real thing. It exists. I mean, it's one of those concepts that is so beyond dispute that the people who do, I mean, they are either completely deluded or they are being actively, knowingly, deliberately dishonest with you. So looking for those relationships between cause and effect, identifying, what preceded the result, all of that can clarify in our own minds. It can help protect us, from, the little whisperings of people who say, oh, no, there's no cause and effect. It's all just psychological. If you don't want the bad result, it just won't happen because you didn't want it. Learning, it can help insulate us from that kind of a bad influence. And then for the Witch's Pyramid, today we are looking at the west wall. The west is tied with the water element. It is tied with emotion. And of course, on Venus's day, that's an emotional day anyway. And because we're more inclined to focus upon, our loved ones, relationships in general. And of course, that's not always about the things that are going well. Sometimes it brings up to our minds things that are not going well. And part of that has to do with, our own contributions to the situation. How are we processing our emotions? How are we expressing them? Are we Are we trying to make everyone dance the tune around our emotional state without giving them anything in return, without letting us adapt? Okay, the video's back now. Are we adapting and showing consideration to others after we have asked them for consideration ourselves? These are all things to contemplate because if we have huge emotional upsets, that's ultimately going to have an unfortunate impact upon our magical practices. So, for the sake of our spirituality, as well as for the sake of our human relationships, this is something that if we have issues, we need to address them. This would also be a good day to drink some rosehip tea. And then also, if you have the time for it, thoroughly clean, organize, and magically cleanse your bedroom. I don't think all of us have as cute as bedrooms as what I found in the illustration, but it is a standard to strive for. We should feel that cozy and homey, and we should have, what our concept of beauty is, what our concept of rest is. And of course, if we're sharing our bedroom, also incorporate and infuse it with romantic energies as well, because if you can't be romantic in your bedroom, I'm not sure where you really can or should be. So it is a multifunctional room, and we need to make sure that the energy is in good order. We need to make sure it's actually organized in a way to where it's working for the people who inhabit that room. And today's just a good day to kind of give that a little bit of extra attention, because after all, we're in Virgo season now. So if there was a time to make adjustments and corrections, it is now. And then for today's journal prompt, how can you improve the state of your romantic affairs? And this is something, obviously very personal, very private, something that, is between your journal and you. And I would really say that this applies whether someone is in a relationship or not. Because if you're in between relationships, or you've had a series of bad relationships, maybe even abusive relationships, figuring out how these things came about, what contributed to the factors, what it was required to get out. This can all help you sort out and break patterns that haven't been helping you, so that you can create better circumstances for yourself in the future. Because, I mean, love really is a human need. And I know a lot of people are really down on romantic love, mostly because they have confused it with lust. They have confused it with hormones. They have confused it with the most shallow impulses imaginable. So breaking that pattern, breaking that cycle, and bringing back romance and genuine emotional attachment to its proper place, that's an overall good working to undertake. And that sums up what I have for you for today. Have a wonderful Friday. I hope your work passes quickly and without any eventfulness, and that you are able to slide gracefully into the weekend. If you are interested, you are very welcome to follow me at Blackbird's Brew on X, and the Blackbird Grimoire appears on both YouTube and Rumble. And of course, if you would like to meet other practitioners, you are invited to join the Oak and Elder Witchery on Gilded, link in the description below. So hope to hear from you soon, and of course, I will see you in the next one. Bye for now.